That's great. A very warm welcome to everybody, and thank you so much for attending this exciting moment in the history of the Elders Council for Social Entrepreneurs. We have been in operation for a couple of years now, and it's been our excuse me, our aspiration for some time to develop the Wisdom Bank, which Mel will be introducing in a minute. I wanted to say that we arrive at this point with the support of quite a number of different organizations, both directly and indirectly. Ashoka, for example, and the new longevity program, which they are starting up at the moment, Skull Foundation and the Schwab Foundation, Catalyst 2030, 50 Plus, the Social Innovation Circle, which is Mark's new operation, the Wellbeing Project, Tendril, Go Generate, and very, very recently announced the globalizer between Fit for Life and Ashoka, which will be getting going next year. So it's my pleasure now to welcome you and to pass you over to Mel, who will do the honors. Mel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and welcome everybody. As co-founders, myself, Andrea, and Chris, we've been listening to the webinars since we started, and the great insights from our speakers, some of which are with us today. And we started to kind of note down what was happening, and we could see that there was real wisdom that people were sharing, insights that people were going, God, that resonates with us. And so we decided to try and collect that those wisdoms, and then so the concept of the Wisdom Bank was born. Hence, we arrive today. So the Wisdom Bank really will fill two functions. One, it will give people access to wisdom. So we will have various ways in which you can access that. So that would be on the website. We have plans to maybe do podcasts, maybe do a book, maybe do different products. But by collecting these wisdom from all of us from the social entrepreneur sector and putting it into one place and making it available to all is one access, one aspect of what we want to do. The second one is really about encouraging people to share their wisdom. So it's not just about, hey, this is the wisdom, please take it away. It's about a process which is backwards and forwards. So giving and taking, and then we want to grow it and build an area which is educating, if you like, ourselves and building the movement or contributing to building the movement as we go along. In terms of the wisdom that's already been collected, some of it is kind of what I would call the macro level. So wisdom about exit strategies, about succession, etc. And that wisdom's come from different cultures. It's been so interesting, different parts of the world looking at these things in a different way, and then that's learning from that and how we might apply to ourselves. And the second part really is what I would call little pearls of wisdom. So little statements that people have made within the talks of them when you've gone, aha, that's really, really insightful, really, really good. So we're collecting these concepts, collecting the pearls of wisdom, and encouraging people to share their moments of pearls of wisdom. Lots of us, I think, as social entrepreneurs have had that aha moment when we go, God, that's right. Okay, I see this now. And we want to capture all of that in this Wisdom Bank. So before handing back to Chris, we have a message from Jeroo Billimoria, who is the Chief Facilitator at Catalyst 2030. Catalyst 2030, as Chris mentioned, one of our partners in this. So I'd like to hand over to Caitlin now, who's going to share a little video from Jeroo.
Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and I am really, really happy to be here at the Wisdom Bank launch. Firstly, a super big congratulations to my three friends, Mel, Andrea, Chris, who have been leading the elders and providing wisdom to all of us in the sector. Many Catalyst members have benefited from the wisdom of the elders. So having the wisdom bank is phenomenal. So firstly, a big congratulations to them for having the idea and launching the wisdom bank. Secondly, I hope everybody contributes to developing our sector's wisdom bank. And thirdly, I think there will be, for all the members, a place to go where they can access the wisdom bank and make sure that our collective learning becomes a reality. So congratulations once again, and thank you very much. And I wish I were there in person. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very nice. That was a lovely extra welcome from Jeroo. Don't you think, Andrea?
Yes, I do. Yes. Well, it's also lovely to have Mark with us, of course, because he was really, when we were in Aix-en-Provence with the Ashoka team, it was really there that the idea was born. So to hear from Jeroo and have Mark here is great.
That's great. So just a very brief introduction to the panel. You've already mentioned Mark by name, Andrea, Mark Cheng, and he's had many different things in his CV already, associated, of course, with Ashoka at a certain time and with the banking industry. But at the moment, he is the founder and managing partner for Social Innovation Circle. You're very welcome, Mark, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Chris. So firstly, huge congratulations to the Elders Council. I'm so excited by the launch of this project, and I really feel that it's both timely and much needed at this time. So like many of you, I spent many years coaching and supporting social entrepreneurs in their journey, both as an advisor, sometimes as a board member, sometimes through Ashoka as a friend and champion and supporter, and more recently as somebody who's been helping entrepreneurial teams, socially entrepreneurial teams, build business models that can really create massive impact. And very often the conversation starts off with no questions around things like fundraising. But what I've noticed is that when it comes to speaking with social entrepreneurs, particularly extraordinary social entrepreneurs like those in the Ashoka network or the Schwab network or many of the other networks that the Elders Council works with, is that the conversations that we have tend to go much deeper than just the bread and butter questions around how can we fundraise or how can we launch a program or all these things. And so one of the, I often find myself very late at night talking to a lot of CEOs and founders around quite profound questions which everybody is struggling with. The questions around growth, questions around succession, questions around what is the personal trajectory that an individual might want to have. And really what all these have in common is that there's a deep thirst for not just knowledge but wisdom. And so that's why I'm so grateful that the Elders Council is promoting this idea of a wisdom bank, which I think is going to provide so much resource and support for so many individuals all over the world who are working for mission, living with purpose, and trying to bring that into the organizations that they have and that they serve. So I see a huge need for it just from the conversations that I have with social entrepreneurs around the world, and particularly with social entrepreneurs for whom it's not just running a business; it's also really about making change, right? Making impact, which is why we're all here. And that's why I think it's so important that we're talking here about wisdom and not just knowledge, because there's no shortage, I think, out there of courses and products and services that are around sharing knowledge. But I think what's happening here with the Wisdom Bank is something which is a little bit deeper than that. It's really around sharing at a very deep level on challenges and problems that everyone faces, and that perhaps we sometimes aren't able to easily talk about, particularly when it comes to questions around purpose and mission and drive and so on. And so having a community of peers who can contribute, our shared knowledge into a bank that can really support many, many people who then around the world will not feel so alone in their questions around these issues, right? I think is going to be a huge, huge contribution. So again, just huge thank you to the team for coming up with this idea and bringing it into the world. I can't wait to see where it goes, and really looking forward to being part of this journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Just before Andrea jumps in, may I just introduce the other panelists that we have today. We have Wietse van der Werf, who is with us from Utrecht. He's a social entrepreneur, of course, a conservationist, and founder of the Sea Rangers. And we look forward to hearing from you in a minute, Wietse. And our own Andrea Coleman, co-founder for Riders for Health, and the founder of Two Wheels for Life, and of course one of our co-founders along with Mel and myself. Over to you, Andrea, to take it along.
Thank you so much, Chris. Mark, it was wonderful to hear what you just said, because everything you said was so full of wisdom, and your perspective is really so valuable, because you've seen so many social entrepreneurs and you've seen the elders like us and youngers and people who are coming through the social enterprise community. And so thank you so much for your words and your congratulations. Of course, when it comes to the Wisdom Bank, we're not exactly sure yet. We've got a way to go in how we collect the wisdom, how we disseminate the wisdom, and how we make sure it's available, and how people contribute. So I'd love to speak to you, Wietse, about how you may have found, because you're a younger and you've joined the Elders Council and been with us for such a long time already, I'd love to hear how you feel that this might be of use to you and to others as part of this community.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and definitely huge congratulations to also Andrea, Mel, and Chris, and the rest of the team for the launch. I just echo Mark's word. It's really really exciting, and also thank you for allowing me to represent the youth. that's a great start to the day. It's interesting. So I think the first calls I joined, it might be 2.5, 3 years ago. I think it was sort of beginning of 2021. And I just remember even that first call, it was so frank, unusually frank and open, the conversation. And I think what people were willing to share. You go to so many events and people are all there to, put their best foot forward and present their enterprise and look their best. And this was very different. This was people talking about challenges, about successions, about when things don't go well. And it just strikes me that, at least for me, but also what I learned within Ashoka, so many of us as social entrepreneurs are propelled in the role. We don't go to business school and then look at a sort of, a good business case to then take on. It's actually something in our lives changes at the moment we realize there's an issue and we want to just, tackle it. And in that sense, there is no manual. So many of, I think, the issues we work on, it's just, there might not even be a market as such. There might not even be other entrepreneurs working in the same space. So, for me, the Wisdom Bank, I think I see this as sort of a start of a potential manual that's been missing. And being able to sort of open it and flick through the first pages can be really, I think helpful, because being an entrepreneur can be very daunting and challenging as well. And as much as it is about people and collaborating, it is a very lonely journey as well. So I think many of us as social entrepreneurs, we have a very unique path. In my case, I work in the maritime industry, like the offshore industry, that there are not any social enterprises active in there. Even for startups, it's incredibly difficult to kind of move in and work with some of these big companies and make some kind of systems change happen. So in that sense, there was so much recognition in these calls with Elders Council, even though these were people working on, could be a tea farmer in India or someone supporting workers in Bangladesh, or it could be so varied. So for me, again, there's been so much recognition and realizing, there's other people who have similar challenges that they go through. And also, I think as social entrepreneurs, we tend to often work from different angles. So in my case, we work on tackling youth unemployment in coastal areas, but we link that with kind of the conservation of nature. And this is like a social and an environmental kind of angle that typically aren't sort of mixed together as such. So yeah, again, noticing that a lot of these social entrepreneurs really follow a similar trajectory, and also that even though I never called myself a social entrepreneur, realizing that these are kindred spirits. And with the show and also the Elders Council, realizing actually there's a lot of people who work the same as me. And then it's also around more boring stuff around financing and just learning with others around social financing and what does it mean to be impact driven. And there's just so many learning from other people. I often think there's like hundreds of brains who have come up ultimately with the work I now do and how it's shaped. And because you have to be like a sponge and just take all of this. Sometimes you have to, I think, ignore the advice of some investors, but you typically have to be a sponge and take everything in. And it was also maybe one particular thing I'm just suddenly thinking about was also this notion of, we had an investor who was ready to invest. It was part of a big investment round 2 years ago. And then there was finally a sticking point, and they said, well, actually, one of the issues we have is that we can't really invest unless you have equity in the company. And I was like, well, I don't want equity. A non-profit owns our company. I don't really, I'm not driven by the money. I want to make the impact. And they said, well, that's very difficult for us because we want to make sure there's a financial incentive for you as a founder to stay. And I'm like, well, that's not my incentive. So so it's really interesting to see how, working in this world and all the systems that are there, again, there's so much to learn from you who've been there before us and who have sort of paved the way for many of us as younger social entrepreneurs to actually fall within an ecosystem and are able to build upon the amazing work that you've already done. So I want to thank the elders for their commitment to share insights and to really hopefully see it as a way to sort of pass on the baton for us as a younger generation to take things forward.
Thank you, Wietse. That all very profound and thoughtful. And what I love about the way you're saying that is really illustrates the way we want the Wisdom Bank to be, that you can be open and honest and have that produce that feeling that everybody on the call can be part of it and not feel that whatever they're struggling with or whatever they're succeeding with, it's all part of this rich community. But both you and Mark mentioned the words lonely and being alone. So many social entrepreneurs feel. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest drivers of being part of thinking about the Wisdom Bank and for the Elders with the Elders Council, because I know that as you say, when you go to a fundraising event, you have to sound really upbeat. Everything's really going well, and you can't say it's been really awful. So I know that we want a place for that to be the case, but not for everybody to feel down, but how do we move forward from this point? So I think that's from the point of view of the Wisdom Bank, we really want a place where people can voice these issues, the things that really do keep them awake at night, whether it's to do with how you do your managing staff or succession or board issues or the real kind of fundamental issues of finance, as you're explaining one of them about how the money world, how the commercial money world sees this, that actually you're invested in your mission. With your mission, you don't need money to keep you focused, and really kind of bringing that understanding from, there are so many things from the point of view of an entrepreneur in comparison with a social entrepreneur, because we know that as people move through a business, you're going to end up with some equity at the end, whereas many people build their organizations and end up with no money and no way of moving on, and that they become stuck in their organizations, whether they want to or not. And so there are so many issues around that need to be discussed. We do need, we need at the Elders Council with the Wisdom Bank to make sure that we hear from other people about how is the best way, what's the best way of gathering and disseminating the wisdom. We're determined to do this. We just would need more, we need to think more about how we're actually going to make it work to bring, as it were, comfort and wisdom to the community as well. So I just wonder if we could just go back to this issue of being alone. That I remember with my own Riders for Health that I really got in a difficult position, and it was very difficult to find people I could actually go and talk to and say, this is what's happened, this is how I feel. And actually, I was very lucky to have Mark to go and talk to at that time. Do you think that there are ways, Wietse, of encouraging people, youngers, to ask for support and help? Or do you think that really people think, I don't want to admit I've got a difficulty or a challenge? Do you think we can encourage people to open up and be frank, as you said, about things?
Yeah, I think definitely, and it's very important for people to realize that the help that is there can be really, really valuable. So I often, I guess there's a lot of people approaching you as a social entrepreneur, being in sort of the picture of an enterprise, and like as we're growing now, a lot of people sort of saying, oh, we can help you with mentoring, but knowing that there are people who have that unique perspective for you as a social entrepreneur, and also that have been there before. I sometimes find it, sometimes it's, for people who haven't had sort of skin in the game, it's sometimes difficult to have that actual perspective.
Yeah.
And, we've had pro bono support from like great consultancies and such, but then, with all due respect, if there is a 23-year-old consultant sitting in front of you, they could probably advise you on sort of tax structures. But to actually have that perspective that you would have of maybe 30 or 40 years having done this work, really, that's of a whole other level. So I think it's something, to me, the Elders Council is still sort of the best kept secret in social entrepreneurship, because actually there should be 40, 50, people on the 40 should be in this call, sharing their experiences and realizing actually that while they might be very focused on building, as you say, Andrea, at some point, things will likely change, either in their personal circumstances or with the business. And actually, how do you take those next steps? What in terms of an exit or succession, or all of these things are important to kind of prepare for ahead of time.
Yeah, I think there are two other things that Cecilia Flores was one of our speakers, and talking about how she didn't feel she deserved to be part of the wellbeing program, because the people that she serves are much more challenged than she is, and I felt it was really important for us to talk to her about how it's really good to think about yourself, because you're going to have to really look after others if you look after yourself.
I mean, there is one other element. Please, Mark, I don't want to jump in too much, but so I was on a call in an Ashoka program 2 years ago, and we were brought into little breakout rooms. And there was someone, a social entrepreneur, who was talking about how they hadn't really spent time with their family for the last 3 months, really emphasizing how important their work was. And I then contacted someone at Ashoka and said, this, I think there needs to be, I just want to flag this, because I think there is an element, Andrea, as you say, of social entrepreneurs being so focused on their mission that also it is, I think, a responsibility for us as a community to kind of really make sure people are okay and offer the support. It's not just a case of sending out a newsletter and saying, oh, here's a wellbeing project, sign up if you want. it's also, I think, identifying and recognizing when actually people, you know, they just, we have to look after each other, you know.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about that, I must say. And then, as you were saying, Mark, that there are much deeper issues in terms of finance than fundraising. Of course, fundraising is really vital, but at the same time, there are much deeper discussions to be had around finance, which you must have heard endlessly. But it's how you make sure people don't only think about fundraising, but that sort of deeper issues about how do you make sure that you prepare for succession, and encourage your board to think about or funders to invest in succession. So there are so many layers to this issue about money. So I just wonder if you feel that as it were, although we've all had to deal with those issues, if you feel that there are ways that we can, not being finance people, how we can kind of open up those discussions about how money impacts on you, and you know how you manage. You know, social enterprise is all about money and mission, and trying to get that balance of, you know, the money and the mission. But it's not easy, is it?
No, absolutely not. And to be quite honest, I think that the finance system itself is a big contributor to the problem here, because there's a certain mindset which is kind of foisted on people, which is, you know, you have to raise as much money as possible to do as much good as possible, to grow as fast as possible. And that is not necessarily a wise or a healthy thing. And so I'm an impact investor, so I spend a lot of time talking to teams and brokering investments into social enterprises and social sector organizations. And I'm actually, I think, quite an unusual one in that very, very often my advice to the team would actually be, don't raise finance, or don't grow at the rates which you think the world is demanding of you. So many of the CEOs and founders, you know, become almost like a slave to the machine, where if you're not doubling in growth and reaching another 10,000 beneficiaries and launching another 5 countries, somehow you failed as a social entrepreneur. And of course, you know, the financial system is almost designed to force everyone into trajectories of growth and expansion, and so on, regardless of whether it's right for them, right for the organization, right for that particular program, or whatever it might be. And so I think what a part of what wisdom is doing here is, to bring to the conversation is to call into question this insatiable appetite for growth and more numbers and more dollars being moved, and all success is reduced to this metric of dollar amounts, right? Which is so tempting. And that's why I think it's a very important part of the conversation to introduce, is to say that there is a higher metric than just raw numbers. And you don't often get that, in conversations around finance or conversations around business planning and growth and so forth, right? And I think that's a big part of the malaise that's in the system. And
interestingly, Mark, one of the things I believe about this is that it's linked to each of us as social entrepreneurs. We want to solve this problem. This is what we've seen as the issue, and we know that when we go to the point of transition and succession, that it hasn't all been done. We haven't solved the problem. We've created some part of a solution, and we've spent, as Wietse has said earlier on, it takes time to do behavior and mind changing. He can be nimble, but it takes a long time. So, but we know that we're going to move on and not have solved every single thing. So it's linking that, what you're saying about the money, don't get in that trap, because you're actually, what is at the end of the day going to be your contribution to solving that problem? It won't be because you've reached another 20 million people, because you still haven't actually solved it. So I think those two things that you've just been saying, and that problem at the point of succession, how can I leave this without having actually solved the problem for once and for all? So I think those psychological and financial drivers play into each other.
Yep.
I wonder if there is anyone who's on the call who'd like to make a comment or ask a question or bring some wisdom or take away some wisdom from the bank. I like Baz's comment about money is not the goal. It can just help, and it's true. But of course, people tend to focus it all on the mission and not think about, often miss themselves about how to take care of themselves.
Yes, and I just put the link up to the page on our website where the first round of evidence can be taken for wisdom. It's the page that Caitlin sorted out for us. So that's yeah. Maybe we could invite Sean. Sean, did you have a thought about all of this as you have been listening very patiently?
Thank you. First of all, going back to the number of people who are involved in this, I think that was Mark's comment. I just found out about the Wisdom Council, about the Others Council through the Wellbeing newsletter. So, Wellbeing Project newsletter. So the fact that it even exists as someone who's also sharing his knowledge and wisdom and financing with social entrepreneurs, I think it's just wonderful that you guys are doing this. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And if you have any ideas, anybody on this session has about how you visualize wisdom being collected and disseminated, we'd love to hear from you. So that's really good.
I must certainly follow up on that.
Thank you. That would be really valuable. Thank you, Sean, very much indeed. Anyone else who would like to come in with a comment or wisdom of their own around money or succession or boards or staffing or any of those issues that people find so challenging? Sorry, go on, Chris.
No, it's fine. It's just that I see that Prakash has just put, hi Prakash.
Oh, okay.
It's good that you have just put a question up here. You say here, I have started an elder care home service with almost no investment. Wow. I don't have clients. I know if I put money for marketing and recruit few caregivers and rent a building, I can make clients in a couple of months. There we are. So thank you very much for that.
Actually, my question is, should I, my fundamental thought process is, I don't have to invest money and get into a place where I do it as a business, but my core intention is to see if there is a real need for that service, that is companionship and the doctor's assistance. These are the only two services which I'm planning to give. And through word of mouth, I have a couple of clients which are my neighbors and nobody else, and I don't treat them as my clients, because if I consider them, I may fall apart. So I need somebody whom I don't know, trust me, and come to ask for this service, to whom I can deliver. So through word of mouth, I wanted to grow. I wanted to grow very gradually with at least, I don't want more than 5 customers in the next 2 months. So I just want to serve only those 5 customers, elderly, and then experience, learn from that, and then recruit more people. Currently, I have done some volunteering courses and also some counseling courses to help the customers myself. And I also have a doctor who readily agreed to accompany me to do that particular service. So should I go for invest in money and get into a customer, only invest in recruiting before I start seeing money, or should I wait till some time until I get customer through word of mouth? That is my actual question.
Thanks, Prakash. And if I recall correctly, you've also written to us on the same basis, if I remember rightly. Yeah, thank you very
Yes.
much for your interest. Mark, there's an interesting question.
Yeah, no, maybe I could just quickly offer a thought back to Prakash on that, because I spend a lot of time coaching entrepreneurs who are exactly at the stage that you're at now. And generally, what my advice is go for the organic growth. Don't worry too much about growing quickly at this point or bringing in a lot of money, because if you do raise funding, you have to go and pay it back eventually, and so you're actually creating quite a burden for yourself, right? Whereas if so I think a lot of this is around being able to, you're in a fortunate position where you can actually get going with just a few people, and that's the most important thing. I think, just to respond to your question. But Andrea, perhaps I could also just come back to a thought which struck me as you were talking a little bit earlier as well, around this idea of loneliness of the social entrepreneur. And it seems to me that one of the differences between conversations that impart wisdom and conversations that are simply about knowledge is this idea that a lot of what we do is really giving people almost permission, to do what they already know that they want to do. And so I find it in a lot of conversations that I have, for example, and I'd be curious what other mentors on the call, find, is that I'm not teaching anything to anyone when I have some of these conversations with the people that I'm mentoring. What I'm doing is I'm giving them a space and a permission to say, look, you don't have to take this investment. For example, with Prakash just now, right? You don't have to do something which you think the world is expecting of you in a particular way, or and so on, or that you have permission to shut down things that aren't working, or to or to change the way that you've been doing things. And so I find a lot of this work is around creating a space where people can feel empowered through the example of somebody who's been and done it, sharing permission and saying, listen, I never raised investment, and it's, and you don't have to, right? And that's not easy when you've got, investors beating on your door, or demanding your business plan, or demanding a 10x growth plan, or whatever it might be. And so I think that's something which the Wisdom Bank can contribute, is that permission to do what people feel in their heart is right for them and their organization, right? Even if that's not, what people expect.
I think that's really, really helpful, Mark, and we'll definitely be harvesting that wisdom, because I think it's probably a good idea for that to really, that notion to come through very strongly in the social enterprise community, that money can actually be a terrible burden, because you start to employ more people, you're more responsible for more people, you end up being the manager of an organization rather than doing what you're so gifted at, is really doing advocacy for the mission and making the changes and getting people to think differently, making those changes. So I think that issue around money, the deeper issues around money are something that we really will really try and push forward on. Thank you so much for that. The other issue, of course, is around how emotional all of this is. People think it is a business, and so therefore it's very practical. But actually, social entrepreneurs believe so strongly in what they do that the mission is them. Their whole lives are put into that, and their families' lives. And so I think we have to think so much about the emotional health and well-being of people. So we'll be encouraging that strongly too. Chris, how are we doing in terms of time? I don't want to overrun here or pinch someone else's time.
We're doing fine. We've got a few minutes left before we hand over to Mel. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Okay.
I think we're doing okay at the moment. Yeah.
Good. That's wonderful. Is there anyone else on Prakash? Is that helpful to you to hear what Mark has to say and to have be able to kind of be part of a community that's talking about the challenges of social entrepreneurship?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Mark. I was just typing about the same. I had the same thing. I don't want to get into any funding, and I have never gone to ask for funding, though I had some proposals that they can fund. I refrained from getting into it because of the same reason what you told. So but now it's 2 months now. I expected at least 1 or 2 unknown customers who are not known to me earlier. I would get, but since I'm not getting any, I'm feeling a little bit pressurized that should I really get into marketing and to create an awareness. Currently, the main problem is the awareness about 2 things: about the benefits of the companionship, and the second one is the availability of my service. These 2 awareness is lacking. That's the main reason.
So what you're talking about, the awareness of older people needing this, not necessarily you providing it.
Yeah, right. Older people currently, they need, there are people with initial stages of dementia. There are people who need just companionship, who are bedridden, but they are not aware that a companionship will help them mentally cope up with their current situation. That's the one thing. And the second one is they are not aware that these kind of services are available.
Yeah, that's true. Todd, it occurs to me that Prakash might like to know about the new longevity program that is beginning. I wonder whether, Prakash, if you put your email into the chat, maybe Todd can drop you a line, if you don't mind, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thank you. And Prakash, one of our focuses is on health agency and care. So yeah, let's talk. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you so much. I've just updated.
Andrea, Baz has been putting in some comments. I wonder whether you want to just have a word, Baz, in the last few minutes.
I haven't had a chance to look at the comments, so I'd love to hear what you're thinking and your perspective here, Baz.
I think that one of the main lessons I learned during entrepreneurship is that you should focus on the reason why your company is there and not focus on the money. Money will follow. So give yourself the time to realize your strategic goals. At the moment you join with an investor who's really going for equity return or something like that, it will get you off the road you're going for. So in that case, maybe it's also good that if you need some funding, find someone who is likewise like you, and he can help you finding solutions instead of putting in deadlines or things like that. We all know it's not a straight line forward. It's like life. It's going up and down, and yeah. And someone needs to be beside you during that path. So I think that's one of the main lessons I learned. And I used to be a banker a long time ago, and we started on the Monday morning, and they had a German saying that which was like, limit yourself and show the master in yourself. So I don't know how to translate it in English, but in die Beschränkung
find out what you're really good at.
Yeah, something like that, so that's the thing I want to share for today, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baz. That's really helpful. What is the organization? What are you working on? I'm
an entrepreneur in the renewable energy. So we develop renewable energy projects, and this is taking at least 10 years before you are successful. So we at least encounter 2 times the value of death, as we say in the financial world, because things are going up and they are going down. So, but stay focused, keep on going, and then finally you will be successful.
Just
then,
may I
course,
quickly ask you, when you say find someone who thinks like you, do you mean like a business partner or a mentor or someone on your board? But what sort of person, how would you describe that kind of relationship?
I think that an advisor with a business background is good. It could be a coach or mentor, but it's also nice if he just can discuss with you where the problem is and share the failures he had and the way he solved problems.
Yeah.
Because then you're leveling. So that's always good.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really
Andrea,
helpful. Yes, Chris.
Andrea, I saw that Anita had put her hand up and then she put it down again. I'm not sure whether that means.
Come on, Anita.
Hi, Anita. Do come in.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Hello, myself Anita. I'm from India. Right. I'm from Chennai, actually, in Tamil Nadu. We are the college called Madras School of Social Work. We are having a department of social entrepreneurship where we do 2 years course for social entrepreneurs. So when we had a interaction with the students where they find it very difficulty in forming team and also the business model. As a project, whatever the social cause they are working on, it will be very good. But when they turned out to be, when we are getting into the scaling or next level, they find it difficult to move into the next level. The Wisdom Bank, like where we collect all the business models of social enterprise, which is successful across the globe. It will be helpful in replicating in India also, whichever possible. So in that case, whatever help in that, we are ready to put in our effort. Yeah, thank you.
Did you find it helpful, Anita, to hear from Mark about how you don't necessarily have to grow in terms of finance, that it may be just, just keep your mission and grow organically? Do you think that's helpful to your students?
Yes, true. Because when we are looking into the profit aspect, it is about scaling up. But here, scaling up, including the community at an organic level, is very necessary. That is what, when we interact, also we advise the students. It is not about the inorganic way to get funders also, and also the main aspect is how we can develop, grow organically is the main crux of the social entrepreneurial success. That is what we also felt.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's really good to hear from you. Thank you.
Could I add one thing, Andrea, because I think I very much echo what Mark talks about, this kind of these critical questions about growth, right? It's also a question around impact. We once had a funder that said, oh, but you're only impacting like 100 youth, and here is another project that impacts 1,000 youth, so we'll support them. And then instead of us giving 100 people like actual jobs, it turned out the other group offered them 1,000 people like a weekend workshop. And I kind of thought, well, this is measuring with 2 different sort of, right? Yeah. So this growth, yeah. But also it's a thing around what you just mentioned is things are also getting very, very urgent. In our case, working on like climate mitigation, actually getting ships and resources out there in our case is also very much urgent from an environmental collapse perspective. So you are also looking at your mission thinking, we do have to grow this. And so there, I think having people around you that can, keep you focused and also understand that as you grow and more money gets involved and such, that you, really make sure you stick to that mission. That's another thing I think with the elders that will really help going forward.
Thank you. And I think that Mark's comment there, which you allude to, about what is the metric? What are you actually measuring? What's important actually in the mission? And to decide on that particular metric. So I think that's a really great piece of wisdom to end on. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions.
I was going to say, Andrea, what an amazing thing that no sooner do we have something along the lines of the Wisdom Bank, then everybody then starts to talk about practical things,
Yeah.
And I think that's a lovely a lovely thing and so fantastic that people can see the Elders Council for Social Entrepreneurs Wisdom Bank as something practical and useful.
Yes.
And they want to have a conversation around that. It's really great.
Yeah, because actually, as Mark was saying, that the discussions people have with him give them permission to behave in a certain way, just to listen to themselves and almost figure out, not with necessarily because of Mark's advice, but because he's listening to them and has that wealth of knowledge, that they give themselves permission. And I think that's part of what the Wisdom Bank can be, is to listen and just allow people to not have to feel that they've got to strive for huge growth and money and everything. So
right.
Yeah,
a sort of alter ego.
Yeah.
Mark, did you want to just make a comment and Wietse, before we hand over to Mel?
No, it was just to reinforce that point and just to emphasize again that there is so much power in a younger person hearing an elder person who's been there and done it say, you have permission to do it in the way that you want. You don't have to follow the playbook that you think that the world is demanding of you, right? Or and I think there is so much power in that. So that's something which I think, if the Wisdom Bank can offer it, in some way, that would be a tremendous service to people.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, just agreed. I will see you all as sort of an additional helmsman on our ship as we navigate through some rough waters going forward.
That's lovely. Well, I love that. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mel.
Okay, this is a really fantastic conversation, as the ones we normally have on our webinars, to be quite honest. And we had the launch today, that's what this is. But actually, if you listen to the conversation, we were getting all sorts of pearls of wisdom and from Mark and Wietse and everybody else who was contributing. So, already I was kind of noting down, we got onto the subject of, how the social entrepreneur journey can be lonely, and Wietse raised that point. And then we talked about how do we get over that, and had some positive discussions. And then Mark was going on about just what he's just said about you don't have to ask permission. Sometimes we just get forced into areas where it's about understanding what the current financial system is and therefore following it slavishly. So we don't have to do that. And he kind of said, don't become a slave to the machine. And, he felt it kind of called into question the wisdom that we have will call into question the entire system and maybe could create change. And then Baz was mentioning, it's critical that we concentrate on the purpose of what we're about, concentrate on the strategic aims rather than necessarily the financial fundraising or the financial performance, to concentrate on that. And that, Prakash was going, talking about being small, was that a problem? And then we were all ending up on a place where the role of the Wisdom Bank or the elders in a way is for us to show how rich this wisdom we have together, and that young people can actually, younger or newer social entrepreneurs can benefit from that, and joining that together becomes something that potentially is quite powerful and very useful. And we mentioned a couple of times, about mentors and support if we're feeling lonely, but in the sense that the Wisdom Bank can become a way in which we can actually, be with somebody collectively through this Wisdom Bank. So I think, once again, as I say, a really, really rich conversation, and thank you to everybody for contributing, Mark, Wietse, Andrea, Chris. We'll move on now, as I said at the beginning, in terms of practically how we're going to develop that, starting now. We're interested in your views. We've got different ways of how this practically can come about, and we'll be growing this starting now up in the new year. So it's a really exciting time for us. Thank you all for your endorsements about what we're doing. We felt it was right, and that you're saying it is right. So we're going to be the custodian of it, the guardian, and make sure it works. And we absolutely want your input all the time and your guidance, so that we can make this great and access to all and valuable to all. And so welcome again. Big cheers again for the launch of the Wisdom Bank as we finish. big cheers. It's going to be special and important. And thank you all so much for joining on this special day. Thank you.
Thank you again. Wonderful to see you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Mark. Thank you so much. Thanks, Wietse.